Hey everyone, welcome to another painting process video. I'll be showing you the process for my Cloak and Dagger piece from Marvel Rivals. I don't often draw fan art with two characters in it, so it was pretty fun to do this one, and perhaps you'll find something interesting with the process as well. I'll be discussing something that might make you feel a bit more secure if you are, let's say, somebody who's self-taught and don't necessarily have the resources or the access to an art school. In fact, as somebody who came out of art college, I can safely say it is rather overrated, even though I did find it very helpful for my own art journey. So if you're one of the people who taught me, don't take it as an offense. To get straight to the point, the key advantage to self-teaching yourself is that, quite simply, you aren't influenced by established formulas of others, for better or for worse. A lot of times, when you're dealing with art education or you're working for a studio, what you're taught is not really the fundamentals. You're being taught the formulas and what is already established in order to adapt to the environment that you're in. So for art school, my art school was shared in college for animation, and their style heavily leaned towards the Disney animation style. As you could imagine, while there are a lot of great structural and fundamental things when it comes to Disney animation, when you look at my art, it's definitely not much showing in that direction. Similarly, because I'm not somebody who has a full-time contract with a specific studio, I don't have studios influencing my work either. So I can safely show that despite the fact that I was in art college, most of what you see in my work is self-taught. And really because there's so many things I do in a weird way, it's very unlikely any studio or art college would have been able to teach this sort of thing anyways. Realistically, every artist will self-teach themselves. It's unavoidable. We all have our individual voices that we want to put into our work, regardless if you have to adapt strictly to your environment or not. Now, bear in mind, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm not about to say my style is this unique, unobtainable thing that's better than other styles. But how I established to this point is largely because I interpreted the fundamentals my own way and not being influenced by other people as much. What I find with people who work at a studio long term, for instance, is that they've gotten so used to the studio style and they've adapted to their peers in there that their style is basically just an extension of what they do. Now, that's not a bad thing by any means, obviously. In fact, it's rather riskier to do what I'm doing because I don't fit a mold as much as these people who are more willing to adapt. But if you're somebody like me who is just really stubborn in having that individual voice in your work, then you can use your own self-taught knowledge to your advantage in molding a style that is individual to you and unique to you, without much influence from other people. You can mix and match whatever influences that you want instead of being told exactly what to do by an art college or a studio. For myself at least, having a more weird and unorthodox style has helped me in a lot of ways because it let me stand out much easier. And also I find it way more fulfilling to do for myself Even though that I have adapted to studio styles before, it never feels the same as just being told I can do whatever I want to do for a client. However, the major disadvantages of doing self-teaching is that this process is going to be slower. As you would imagine, if you're just told the formulas and taught the formulas from a studio and you accept it, then you don't really have to think too deeply in how to change it. Quite simply, you'll get the results that you want very quickly because the style has already been figured out and you can just adapt to it. And of course, in doing so, your clients and your studio will more likely to find use for you because you can do what they want to the T. In addition, the studios will often have their own way of interpreting their fundamentals so that you won't make a lot of the mistakes that self-taught artists might fall into. This is particularly evident if you're, let's say, dealing with how to draw human beings and their anatomy. Studios will often have very specific proportions and structures that you have to adhere to. And in following and learning that, you too can take that and learn the proper way of drawing their structures, which is a actually pretty good way to learn. Going back to my Disney example, going through animation school, while I'm not really using that Disney style, the way that the Disney characters are drawn and how they're broken down is something that I still do for my own work. It's just a different interpretation of the geometric structures that you learn from dealing with Disney animated characters. Whereas I find that you can get into the bad habits of self-taught knowledge by just justifying everything that you do as your own style, which you can imagine can sometimes mean that you can justify your structural and technical mistakes. You don't really have that option if you are being strictly taught certain established styles for a studio or college, since there's an objective grade to what you need to follow in order to get the look that they want. So yes, while I do advocate for finding your own individual voice in art and self-teaching yourself that knowledge, you also want to be wary of not using that as an excuse for your own pitfalls. It took me a long time to even break away from my bad habits, and I'll admit that there are still some things that I do that is questionable. So sometimes you need to tell yourself that perhaps what others do can help you quite a bit, and following certain formulas can really clean up some of those mistakes. After all, they're established styles for a reason. They've been curated, they've been done long enough that it's something that just works. Whereas it's riskier to have to find that formula for yourself that you individually like, as well as what your audience may enjoy as well. On a final note, the reason why I do find that finding your self-taught style is a better option is because of AI art and its rise currently. If you're watching this, my prediction is that people will gravitate towards more individualistic styles rather than stuff that's very established in a studio environment. Precisely because AI art will make all those established styles pretty common, since AI art is capable of replicating styles pretty well. With more established styles, they have more samples to train AI models with, which makes their AI more consistent in creating that established look that they have. Knowing this, while there are advantages and disadvantages to both approaches, my personal take, if I were to bet on something, is that it's better to start thinking about your individual voice that will be harder for others to replicate, especially with AI. That's not to say that AI isn't going to replicate your art anyways. In fact, as of this moment, I've said this before, there have been people who have tried to use AI to train their models to replicate my art, but certainly it's not to the same extent as, let's say, a Studio Ghibli AI art thing. So there is a major benefit to having your individual voice that you've self-taught yourself, your own formula that may seem a bit odd and unorthodox, but it's unique for you. Anyways, thank you for watching. Here's a final piece for Cloak and Dagger for Marvel Rivals. Again, please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow. And of course, it'll make me more motivated to show you how I do things, how I create the sausage. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.